you're taking a leap, jumping off the cliff and hoping you're going to build your wings on the way down. One of the hardest things that I found as a founder was to allow other people to make mistakes. What really defines how good of a founder you are is how you're able to deal with the low moments.
If you had to start Tymit right now, what would you have done differently?
You can do yourself a favor if you start with a narrower vision. Don't fool yourself in thinking that it's about the funding or it's about the idea.
It's almost like if you're not obsessed about the idea enough, then probably it's not the right idea for you. What is your best day at Tymit?
See that someone has left us 5 stars saying that the product has helped them in some way.
Especially in the early days, I think every startup founder has to go through a little bit of, let's say, fake it till you make it rule, or let's say exaggerating things to get your way in.
I don't think that was needed, to be honest. I mean, definitely people think at the beginning you're bigger than what you really are.
Yeah.
And I did have to run customer support myself. I did have to go and design screens myself and do things that a normal sort of CEO of a company wouldn't do to make it work. And you'd have to do things like that. It's true that, on our initial version, I don't think we could have done more than 500 customers, And when we started operating, we knew that we would have to scale operations to the next step before we could take in more customers. And you sort of engage in, say, commercial conversations with providers where you have to commit to volumes that today you don't have the capability of doing, but you're betting on yourself building the capability to do it over time. So, a credit bureau would say, okay, here's a contract for doing credit checks on people, but you have to do X number of checks, in the next 6 months or in the next 12 months. It's just an example, but we looked at the number of checks. We actually don't have the capability of serving that many customers, but we know we will. Yeah. So you kind of, you sort of, you bet on yourself building enough traction to just sort of catch up. And that's a little bit of what you're doing constantly, right? I mean, you can't just go out and build an operation to serve, 10 million customers when you're still far away. So you got to take it step by step.
But this is exactly, I think this is a very founder-like feature to, if it looks feasible in the near future, you can actually, let's say, promise something and commit to something, betting on yourself, and then go figure it out how to get there.
Yeah. You know how we spoke before about getting money from your friends and that sort of being going like a before and after? This is a similar thing, where you go and you find yourself signing contracts that you cannot afford. And you just, I remember, it's another sort of mental kind of challenge where like, this is a big contract and we're gonna have to raise some money along the way to pay this and acquire a bunch of customers in order to get there. So it's one of those things that you're taking a leap and you sort of, you're jumping off the cliff and hoping you're gonna build your wings on the way down. And that's how it feels. And that's the way it's supposed to be in startups, right?
Yeah, let's talk about the stage you're at right now. How many products, as far as I understand, you actually launched more than one product? Can you talk a little bit about these 2 products?
Yeah, so we're really excited. So our main product is our installment credit card.
Yep.
And it's designed to help people budget more effectively, offering installments everywhere and a plan to repay your balance. We actually saw last year that we were having all of these customers that we could not approve. And it's not that they weren't great customers, they were great customers. It's just that the credit score did not represent who they really are. And we felt that the traditional credit scores are not great at that, particularly during the pandemic. It's gotten worse, where you got people with no credit history that actually have great jobs and and great ability to use and repay credit. You've got people that just run into problems in the past and their score went down and they're clearly, it's very safe to offer credit to.
Do you have to rely on a credit score when you're lending money? Or
well, that's exactly the point, that credit score will distort the picture, right? So unless you can build models that work completely outside the spectrum, the credit score will influence the decisions you make. So we've done a lot of work in using alternative models and open banking data to put things in perspective and being able to make better decisions that don't rely entirely on the score. Otherwise, you're just leaving a lot of opportunity out there.
And I guess these are the bits that FCA has to approve when you...
Well, the FCA, well, no. I mean, this is more something you have to agree with your lenders. So we have to borrow money to lend money. And the people who lend money to us, they want to make sure that we are lending that money in the proper way, at least at the risk level that they're willing to take. So you got to have a credit policy that is aligned with the investors that are investing in your company. So you got to work it out with them. The FCA wants to make sure that you're treating customers fairly and you have everything in place to keep people out of trouble and help people out when they need it. So what we saw was that there was a lot of these people that we could not approve them with our credit policy, and they were saying, "But I'll put money into the product. I would love to have a Tymit card, and why don't I just allow me to put £1,000 in the account and just give me a card?" And we thought, actually, that's a great idea. When I moved to the UK, I couldn't get a credit card. I couldn't get a postpaid phone. I had to get a prepaid phone because nobody would take the risk of giving me a SIM card. And I had no really good choices of building my credit history. So we came up with Booster, which is a product that allows you to prepay into it, and you get a credit account secured by money that you set aside. We put it with Bank of England, untouched. We don't touch it. We don't use it for anything. But it's securing the credit line that we give you. So you actually, the way to think about it is, instead of using your debit card, your Monzo card, or Revolut card is spend, you can use this credit account to spend, and you actually enrich your credit history with that. All else being equal, you will have the ability of improving your score and proving yourself that you have good repayment capacity, and there's money coming in, money coming out. You're present in the financial system, and for people who are locked out of the financial system, like foreign nationals, for example, this is really important. So for us, is a way to actually give a product to people that they can do that, help them improve the score, and then once we see more data, then we can actually offer the traditional unsecured card to them.
Awesome.
So we have those two products live.
That is great. So guys, I just want to encourage you to check it out. Where should the customers go to see the product?
Yeah, everybody can go to Tymit.com and you'll see both products, the installment card and the booster card out there. You can get them by just downloading the app and applying through your phone.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the customer acquisition, so distribution, which is very important, I think. Yeah. So credit card is quite a competitive sector, I would say. How do you go about customer acquisition? And what is your experience so far? So the credit card market is a huge market, right? You've got about 30 million plus active credit card users in the UK.
In the UK only, which is crazy. Like if you think about all the innovation that's happened in the sector, Monzo, Revolut, Starling, all these banks coming in with new propositions, and you still have 33, 32 million customers, people actively using credit cards in a product that really hasn't changed much in 10, 20 years. It's mind-blowing. And that's because there is something to credit cards that make them useful. They are useful. People use them for numbers of reasons. So you can slice and cut that market in many different ways. So yes, it's competitive, but if you're able to focus on some elements, on some needs and use cases and customers and solve for them, then all of a sudden it doesn't become that competitive, because all of a sudden you're going to find yourself in a territory that there aren't that many people playing. Like, for example, credit cards are not great products for borrowing. Everybody knows that. They don't help you pay back your balances. They don't help you understand the costs of it. So if you want to finance something with a credit card, it's a horrible experience. Who is actually doing that on a credit card differently than traditional banks? Well, really not very many people. So if you wanted to budget in a more effective way with a credit card, there aren't that many options out there. And that's why people were, and still are, going, resorting to other products, even using overdrafts, which it's even worse, or doing buy now, pay later, or there's other things. So if you, that's how you should think about competition. You know, it's in the context of these battlegrounds, so you can cut the market in a way that it's favorable to you and to your proposition.
And then you just do some like social media and online ads and things like that.
So that's channels. So how you go about, say, when you define what's your market and how you go about finding the market. And that's where the test and learn needs to happen. And depending on your business model, some channels may work better than others. I don't think there's a silver bullet. Like, you know, I think it's a combination of channels. And if you have diverse acquisition strategy, it actually makes a lot of sense, because you become a much more nimble company and you're able to lean on some of these some channels when the times are really great for that, and then let go some others when it becomes too expensive. Also, if you are into credit and you are declining a lot of people, because that's what you have to do, there's a lot of demand for credit. And if you want to have a sustainable company, you're going to have to be selective on, actually, you have to be responsible and issue credit onto those who only can afford it.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of the duality we're ourselves immersed in. You can't give out credit to people that it's just too deep into it and cannot afford to have it. So some channels work better for doing that screening than others. And then you got to work on the advocacy of your own customers, and you know, we focus a lot on that. We have a referral program. For us, makes a lot of sense. You know, we have a product that it drives a lot of promotion. People are really happy. In general, we tend to have about 70% of promoters give us the top promoting feedback when we ask surveys. That is amazing. It's actually the highest I've ever seen when I was at Bain in a financial services product. And so leveraging that for getting people to actually convince some other friends or colleagues to use the product, it's key. You know, for us, it's a big element.
Cool. Then how many people do you employ right now?
We are at about 80 plus, and it's growing fast because we are hiring every week. We have most of our company is based in London. We have our engineers based in Madrid, in Spain. Then all business operations operate here locally. We're now hiring engineers from other places, and it's becoming really competitive. Obviously, the market has picked up, and we're seeing lots of talents everywhere. And I think COVID has taught us the big lesson that, you know, you don't have to sit next to people to be able to work effectively. So it's great. So we can focus on finding talents, and that's what we're doing. And it's crazy because, you know, like most of us in the company haven't met each other face to face. We've been, you know, working remotely for such a long time, but the company's still growing. So it's more than 80 now, and we're sort of hiring all the time.
What is it like to work for a startup? Let's say for your engineers, what is the lifestyle? What does it look like?
I think, several things. I think you're joining an environment that is very flexible. That you're going to see that there aren't as many rules and norms and structure that you would find in other companies. You have the ability to actually shape things. You're joining a very dynamic environment. We work hard. We're not going to deny that. I mean, if you have high ambitions, you have to work hard. But you're joining a team of people that actually will walk with you, and that they will teach you, that will actually make it interesting and fun for you.
Some of the tech startups are famous for making their employees work super hard, like long hours, weekends, nights, and things like that. What is your, let's say, position on that? Do people work on weekends?
Yeah, we don't tend to work weekends. I don't think you have to work weekends. I would lie to you if I'd say your startup is a place where you can go and do your 6 to 8 hours, and sometimes you have to do more. Sometimes you can do less than that. It's a lot about how do you manage your time and you are efficient, and cutting out the slack. Kind of making sure that your work is effective. So you might as well just rest over the weekend and then come back fresh on a Monday. You'll be a lot more productive.
How has your role changed over the last 4 years now? And what aspect of this transition has been, like, let's say, the most challenging for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's at the beginning you have to do everything, right? And I was actually, writing some lines of code. I was actually designing the screens on the design platform, and being very prescriptive about how things needed to work, running customer service, and kind of doing a lot of the things that need to be done. Then you have to start to let go some of things and start to hire people and start to delegate more, and become more of a mentor, become more of an advisor. And I think one of the hardest things that I found as a founder was to allow other people to make mistakes that they're going to make. But some people need to walk that path. And sometimes they surprise you and they don't make them. But that allows you to get more leverage and get more things done. Just let people make their own mistakes instead of just trying to do everything yourself. And that's been a challenge. I think that's been hard because you have so much, I guess, compromise and emotional attachment with what you're building, what you're doing. Every single customer complaint hurts in the heart, and you want to go and solve it, yourself. So trusting people to go and do that for you takes a bit of a step. But then you realize that once you do that and you hire the right people, that's what you need to do for your company to scale. It's a process.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So basically, you don't want to be micromanaging.
I do like to get involved here and then into that, particularly when things don't work well. That's when I tend to jump in. That's when I like to jump in and just, here's the thing in financial services. People are sick and tired of feeling that they're like a number, and banks are very large institutions. They're run by well-intentioned people, but they're so large that their products and their service make you feel like it's very impersonal. And so I think even if you do something wrong and your product doesn't work the way it's supposed to, if you go and tell someone, sorry, we'll make it better, we hear you, we understand your problem, all of a sudden it's okay. People love that. It's like, oh, you're actually responding to me. So I like to jump in sometimes when things don't go well and explain to people what happened and just assure them that we're working on it, etc. The team does that too, but sometimes hearing that from one of the co-founders of the business, I think makes a difference to some of them. So I like to think that helps. So I like to do that. I also like to read a lot of the comments and the reviews and the incoming traffic. That's just to get my ideas around what's going on.
Awesome. How did you leverage your experience at Columbia Business School when building the startup? How did it help you?
Well, I mean, the big help is the network. So a lot of the early investors in my company, actually friends of mine from Columbia, a lot of the advice I've gotten to how to go about and build Tymit actually came from entrepreneurials that were friends of mine at Columbia. I would say Columbia also allowed me to get a good job at Bain that allowed me to gain the tools to build the confidence to do what I'm doing. But I would highlight the network. That's the biggest thing that I got out of it. Columbia is big on entrepreneurship. A lot of people who go there are thinking about launching their businesses, actually go out and launch their own businesses. So if you go to Columbia, you're going to find yourself, as in some other business schools, you're going to find yourself surrounded with lots of people that have been involved in one way or another in the startup world.
Cool. And you mentioned that you like to hire business school grads as well.
Oh yeah.
And we're in London, so one of your CFO, Roku, he's an LBS graduate. Yeah. So when people are watching us, if they're excited about the business and they want to join you on this journey, where can they find job posts?
Oh yeah, I mean, you can go online on a webpage. We have a link on careers, and you can find all our open positions there. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I tend to answer whenever I can to those posts, but I tend to go through all of them. Definitely, we're really interested in business school students. Juan, one of the other co-founders, used to be an INSET as well. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I found that business school grads, they make great hires. Very, I would say, smart people, structured. Lots of leadership skills, work well with other people. They have a lot of customer empathy, which is really, really important to really think about the customer in everything you're doing. So I think they make great hires. So really, really interested in.
Great, guys, you heard it. Check it out. But by the way, you don't have to be a business school grad, right, to apply for a job.
Obviously,
it's not a requirement.
We hire tons of positions in marketing, in customer service, engineering, product. You don't have to have a business school degree. Of course not.
Okay, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, how do you manage your stress level of running a company? Like recently, you probably heard the founder of Monzo stepped down as CEO because of the mental pressure. So how do you manage the stress?
So you know what I think the big challenge is that when you're a founder, you're always living in the future, right? It's about figuring out what the future needs to look like, visualizing that as well as you can, and then pushing everybody to get there. So you're constantly like, guys, let's go there, let's go there, let's go there, which means that you're not present in the moment. You're not thinking about now. And that kind of like starts kind of, scratching a little bit. And because you're always thinking about something that is not yet real. I think that's something that I've kind of thought about that I think makes it a bit hard. So one way to deal with anxiety and stress, I think, whether it's coming from that or something else, I think it's having good co-founders. Again, for me, having my brother, it's a good way to share the things that are worrying you, and it's a good way to channel those emotions out. You're still going to feel lonely, very much lonely, because some of the burden you're just going to have to bear yourself, and that's the way it works. And I don't think you can still do this without stress. I think it comes with the job. You just have to find a way to deal with it. So I think what really defines how good of a founder you are is how you're able to deal with the low moments throughout your career. You're going to have a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and how really able you are to pick yourself up from those negative moments and actually rebuild the whatever is going wrong at that time and deal with those moments. It's really hard because whether it is funds telling you they're not going to invest in your company, things breaking down with the product, just people leaving the business, all of these really, really negative things going on. You still got to find the motivation to actually keep people moving forward.
That is a great perspective. So now looking back at your journey, like for 4 years now, if you had to start right now, if you had to start Tymit right now, what would you have done differently?
I think when you're starting a business, you can do yourself a favor if you start with a narrower vision, saying, I'm going to do that for freelancers, and I'm going to do that for this very distinct segment, and I'm just going to focus on that for a while, and then I can evolve them. We didn't feel passionate enough about any narrow segment. We wanted to change credit from the beginning. So maybe if I were to start again, maybe I would have done that differently. And some of the segments we know of now, we would have started with them for a while and then start migrating to other ones, which is more of the standard startup playbook. Start with a narrow audience, and I think it's a good choice. So maybe we do some bit of that.
What would be your advice to young entrepreneurs or people who just have let's say a startup idea, but they don't know how to make this first step, how to act, So what would be your advice to them?
Yeah, so I think coming back to the advice that I got is, I think you got to make sure that you're willing and able to do what you want to do. Don't fool yourself in thinking that it's about the funding or it's about the idea. It's all about your conviction and your motivation to go and do that. And having the support, the emotional support that you need. If you're in a relationship with your partner, friends, family, you're going to need support to do that. Find what is it that makes you actually look at everything else you're doing right now and say, I don't want to do that, I want to do this. When I was at Bain, the last year I was at Bain, I couldn't stop thinking about Tymit. I just couldn't. It came to the point where I just have to do this. I have to do it. It's just. It took me a while, but it was so obvious, and the unknowns were so big, and I didn't care. So if you find yourself in that situation, or let me say it another way, if you don't find yourself in that situation, careful. Think it through and build that conviction.
It's almost like if you're not obsessed about the idea enough, then probably it's not the right idea for you.
Yeah. So, for example, I guess when I was in New York, I thought about the idea of doing a new kind of getting into the food business. Nothing to do with fintech, but I saw that there could be a really great opportunity of creating a new kind of hamburgers that you could actually build different tastes. So build a hamburger online with different ingredients, cheese, vegetables, mushrooms, onions, and build it in your own way. And they would ship it to your home, and with the highest quality meat and even vegan versions and all of that. Sort of build a lot of innovation around a product that hasn't really changed in a long time. And we felt in the US there would be a huge market to go and do that. Now, do I see myself selling hamburgers? But not really. I saw the business opportunity. I thought I could do it, but I wasn't willing to. It just wasn't a business that motivated me enough to go out and do it. So I think you got to find that makes you tick, and that if things don't work out, at least you're going to walk out of it with a journey that you liked. And having spent time in an industry that you wanted to get smarter on and build relationships with people, and for me, being in fintech actually meant I had a chance to change the credit card. If this didn't work out, I'm still going to work out happy. So you got to find that conviction, that motivation. That's
a great example. Okay, I think that's a really good way to finish, let's say, the official part. Now I want to go into like a quick fire round. I have 3 quick questions. You can take as long as you want to answer. So the first one, what are the 3 books that you would recommend for entrepreneurs that helped you along the way?
I'm going to be very transparent about this one. I spent more than 10 years at Bain. I went to business school. I studied 2 degrees. I read a lot of books, a lot of business books. I don't think I have a single one to recommend you that would help you in this journey, to be honest. I think obviously you can get smarter on product market fit, you can smarter on growth tactics, you can read Nudge, everybody reads Nudge. Yeah, it's just, there's lots of, I don't think that's where the answers are. And to me, I would be lying if I were to say, oh, these 3 books really helped me out. It wasn't an answer for me. I think for me, it was speaking to people that's done this before. Go out and speak to people that have the expertise that actually will recommend books to you and will put them in perspective. I think what you need is sometimes you do need frameworks, right? Because the problems are too complex and you need a way to bucket things and go at it in pieces, and books sometimes provide you a framework to do that. And so there are many examples of books that do that. But at the end of the day, you also have to build your own framework, not just follow something that a book is telling you. So to be bluntly honest, I would encourage someone to just go out and speak to people who've done this. Maybe join a startup school, maybe join one of these sort of incubator programs, and you will get a lot of structure in some of those, rather than just go off and building your conviction by reading some framework out there.
Cool. I think one of the best answers to this question. Okay. What was your most stressful day at Tymit?
So the most stressful day was when we were shut off by the FCA because of the Wirecard issue. And the problem here was we had a live program with Wirecard. This was June last year. And the problem was that we were the only credit program, which means we didn't take deposit money. So we were giving, like we do, we give credit lines to people. People spend on the credit lines, and then we need to collect the money back. So if all of a sudden we were to disappear, people wouldn't lose money. Actually, people wouldn't have to pay back. Actually, it would be better. And we tried to tell the FCA, look, all the Wirecard programs, they have deposits, and I understand, we understand it's a concern if people don't have access to those funds because those companies are not operating. It's a big, big problem. You need to stop that. But we are different. We're not into that issue. And by the way, we can operate independently than Wirecard. We can maintain the full operation. We're not going to be impacted at all. But it made it very difficult for them to stop what was going on. So that was, I would say, one of the hard day, just to know that at X p.m. that day the program was just going to go down, and we didn't know when we were going to be able to get it back online. It was this whole uncertainty in the industry that lasted for a few days, and then we scrambled. We kind of started developing ways for people to actually use the product despite the card not working. But then at the end of the day, fortunately, we managed to get everything back online in a few days. So
just for the people who don't know what Wirecard does and why it is so important for a credit card issuer like you.
Yeah, so in the early days, we used Wirecard as a way to access the Visa network. So because when you are a small company, you don't have the capital nor the resources to be able to comply with all the rules that a scheme such as Visa would have you have. So what you do is you hire someone else to be your gateway into the network, right? So actually the card, effectively, the Wirecard was the member at Visa. We actually were a client of Wirecard. And this is the same way Monzo got started, Revolut got started, pretty much all the neobanks got started, pretty much all of them.
What is your best day at Tymit?
The best day at Tymit is when we get really great feedback and reviews from people. I just can't describe how really happy it makes me to wake up on a Sunday and see that someone has left us 5 stars saying that the product has helped them in some way. It's the ultimate proof that what you're doing is worthwhile. It's great. It's a great feeling. The opposite is also true. When someone gives you a bad review, it really hurts. But focusing on those positives, I think really that makes my day.
That is a great answer, and I think it also kind of shows that it is worth leaving a good review. So if you are happy, because I think most of the people tend to leave reviews when they had a negative experience, so it's kind of biased. So guys, especially for startups, leave a review. You can see it can make founders' day easily.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Perfect way to end the interview now.
Well, thanks very much.
Well, we have a freebie time giveaway.
Right.
The task is for our viewers is to leave a comment in the comment section of the YouTube below the video. And the question is, what is the biggest pain point for you when using a traditional credit card, and how can Tymit help you? If you leave a comment, we have a freebie for you, which is
by using the code we're going to share with you on the screen, you can apply for Tymit and we'll give you a £15 credit.
So everyone who leaves a comment gets a £15 credit.
That's right.
Cool, amazing. Thank you, Martin, a lot. It's been a pleasure. Super useful.
Thanks for everything. It's been really interesting. Thanks very much.
Thank you.